I want to take some time today to talk to young people. And when I say young people, I'm talking to people in their 20s or in their 30s. So if you're in your 20s or you're in your 30s, you want to pay close attention to today's podcast. There's a misconception that has been widely spread that the glory of the youth is their strength. Now, what makes you special as a young person is how strong you are. Now, the statement is true, but not in the context that people think about it in terms of strength. A lot of people, when they think of strength as physical strength. Your physical strength, agility. I don't think that is what that saying is trying to convey. Even though it has been interpreted that way widely, I don't think that's the juice in that saying. It's not really about physical strength. Physical strength is something the human organism isn't blessed with. And what I mean is, the human being is not really strong when we compare ourselves to other animals out there. Strength is not our thing. Strength is not our thing. It isn't. Agility is not our thing. Most other animals are either faster or stronger, or faster and stronger than the human being. So strength is not our thing. Our thing as human beings is our intellect, our brain. That's our strength. Not the physical strength or the agility. Most animals can outrun us. A dog can outrun you easily. A cat can outrun you. A lion can outrun you. No, most animals can outrun you. A lot of animals are stronger than us. When it comes to the primates, when it comes to strength amongst the primates, human being, we don't rank very highly. So strength is not our thing. It has always been our intellect. So the yardstick for judging the quality of a human being has always been the intellect. So that saying, the glory of the youth is their strength, talks more about your intellectual strength than about your physical strength. And what I've come to realize is that there are a lot of young people, 20s, 30s, that are not making good use of their intellectual strength, but they are being convinced to use their youthful years to exert physical strength. They are being manipulated to exert physical strength. So you see a lot of people tell young people, you are still young, you should be able to do this, you should work this, you should do that, you should use your physical strength more. So they make it seem like, don't waste the glory of your youth, your physical strength. Yes, you might be stronger than somebody in their 40s, 50s, 60s, but that is not what makes you special. It isn't. It is your intellectual strength. And what I mean by this is that if we were actually to take time to study our anatomy and our biology as human beings, we will know more about what we should be doing than studying ideologies. The problem with the human is that we do not take time to study our anatomy and our biology that tells us more about our purpose. We spend more time with ideologies about what we think our purpose should be. But in the long run, the truth of the matter is that our anatomy, our physiology, says more about what we are built for and what we should be doing per time. And this is where I want young people to pay good attention. You see, the human brain is probably the distinguishing feature of the human organism. As I have said, it's not our strength that makes us special. The quality of a human being is known by the quality of their intellect. The quality of a lion is known by the quality of his strength. Most animals, their strength, their speed. That's how they choose their mate. But human beings do not choose that way. We are to choose through the quality of our intellect. Our brains make us better. It puts us at the very top of the food chain. And I want to talk a little bit about our brains and how it determines what we should be doing at each stage of our lives. The human brain has something called the frontal cortex that gets developed with time. Now, with children, from 0 to their teenage years till 19, sometimes even 20, the brain is not fully formed. The frontal part of the brain is not fully formed. And that frontal part of the brain is where we reason. That's where a lot of reasoning is done. And we are able to reason about consequences and judge activities, whether they are good or bad, and question things. Your early years and your teenage years, that part is not formed. That's why kids and teenagers don't think about consequences. They are very adventurous. The brain is like this, and it is not a weakness. It's intentional. What that physiology of the brain, or the biology of the brain, the anatomy of the brain at that very time, what it's trying to say is that that part of our life is meant for play. Because when you play, you do not stop to think about consequences. Play is about adventure. So from 0 to 19, people should be playing. That's what our anatomy tells us. That's what our physiology tells us. Your brain is not fully formed, not thinking of consequences, because at that part of your life, you should be adventurous. You should be adventurous. You should be allowed to play. When you do not allow a child to play and you keep them in a place where they have to intentionally think about consequences, you destroy the child. You destroy their childhood. That's why it's important for children to have parents or parental figures that can watch them play without trying to restrict them with consequences. Because physiologically, the brain is still in a place where it's excitable and it thrives on playing without thinking, oh, if I do this, I might hurt myself. They are meant to be adventurous. So when people say they were denied their childhood, what they really mean is that they were taught responsibility too early and they started pressing on the brakes in life too early. Even a 19-year-old should still be playing. The worst thing you can ask a child or a teenager is, why are you doing this? What is going to be the outcome? What are you going to profit from this? No. You allow them to express, but you guide them so that they don't hurt themselves. But you must continue to encourage them to be adventurous, to play. You break them because the brain is not ready. The brain is not fully formed or ready for critical thinking. Now, the human brain gets fully formed in your 20s, your early to mid 20s. The human brain is fully formed. It's like a new brain. The brain is at the height of its functionality. In your 20s, your brain is at the peak, at its prime. Your brain is the largest at that time. Fully formed, frontal cortex and all, ready to absorb information. What this tells us is that the young person, 20s and 30s, thrives on thinking, thrives on asking questions, solving problems. That's why your brain is biggest at that time. That in itself is the strength. That's the strength. That's the jewel of being a youth. Not tiring yourself out physically. It's what your brain is ready to do at that time. If you're in your 20s or your 30s listening to this, your brain will not get any bigger than what it is right now. That is biggest. I don't care what your body frame is. Your brain is at its biggest. It has grown fully. If you are going to do any activity in your 20s and your 30s, please use your intellectual strength. Don't let anybody manipulate you to do physical work at the expense of intellectual work. Because you are more prepared for intellectual work than you are for physical work. In your 20s and your 30s, use your brain for intellectual activities. Intellectual. If you are taking a job, don't let anybody trick you to take a job that needs you to be carrying stuff up and down, running from place to place, and them telling you you are still young, this is the time you should be doing this. That's a lie. The strength you need to make use of is your intellectual strength. You are strongest at that point in time. Look for jobs that allow you think, that allow you question. That is your glory. That is your glory. Because by the time you get to 40, the interesting thing about the brain, when you get to 40, and you can check this out, this is not me thinking this off the top of my head, it's human biology. It has been so in the past, and it's going to be so going forward. The brain begins to shrink. It begins to reduce in volume. I'll read out something here, which I got on a website when I was doing some research. It says, it has been widely found that the volume of the brain and or its weight declines with age at a rate of around 5% per decade after the age of 40, with the actual rate of decline possibly increasing with age, particularly over the age of 70. What that means is by the time you hit 40, your brain in weight and volume will begin to decline by 5%. By 5%. And every decade, it will decline by another 5%. So it declines by 10% when you are 50, and even increases in rate by the time you hit 70. The brain will begin to get smaller in what it can take. That means the volume would begin to decrease. And that's why it seems like 40-year-olds, people in their 40s, are stuck in their ways. That's why they say a fool at 40 is a fool forever. What that means is that a lot of times 40-year-olds have a rigid way of doing stuff. When you try to teach them things, they resist. They're like, this is how I normally do it. This is how I do it. I don't do it. I can't be learning this new thing. This is how I do it. They're not being stubborn. It's their brain trying to protect them. The brain has gotten smaller in volume. So if you're trying to put more on the brain will resist, saying, I cannot take more anymore. I can't take more. I don't have the space for it. So it will resist. It holds on to what it knows. At this point, what 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds and even 60-year-olds should do, because at this point, your memory, your brain will start unburdening, losing things. You start to forget things, and it gets worse with time. Because at this point in your life, what you need to be doing is transferring knowledge. A 40-year-old, 50-year-old should be transferring knowledge. That's why a 40-year-old, 50-year-old should be advising people, not hustling, not struggling for jobs. You should be advising, teaching, mentoring. Because you are losing it anyway, you might as well start dumping it somewhere else. There was a time I had an issue with my laptop. Just started deleting stuff. I think it had a virus. Just started deleting files. Immediately, I brought out my external hard drive and started transferring all the information into the external hard drive. That's what we need to start doing when we hit our 40s and our 50s. You need to start dumping out that knowledge that you have. Start teaching. Start passing across information. Start passing across to that 20-year-old, that 30-year-old, that generation whose brain is at its peak and is so big, ready to take information, that has started asking questions and you have the answers to as a 40 or 50-year-old. That's why the dynamics of governance, especially here in Nigeria and all over the world, is ridiculous. The truth is that the 20 and the 30-year-old should be the ones in leadership position, because they are the ones most willing to learn. They are the ones most willing to adopt to new ways of doing things. They are the ones that are most perceptive. Their brains are bigger. Their strength is much. But reverse is the order today, where you have the 40, 50, 60-year-olds in leadership position, and they begin to advise. They get 30-year-olds as their special advisors. That should never be the case. The advisor should never be the younger one. The younger one should be the leader. The advisor should be the older one. 20-year-olds should be the leaders, while the special advisors should be the 40, 50-year-olds who are willing to dump out information. The 40, 50-year-olds should be teaching, writing books, creating courses, mentoring, dumping out information. That's what your brain is beginning to tell you. And if you don't dump it out, you just begin to lose it. It just begins to go. By the time you get to your 70s, a lot of times memory retention is a great task. Retention of information is a great task. They have short-term memory. They don't remember what has happened so long. This is not a disadvantage. We used to see it as a disadvantage, but it really isn't. What your physiology is telling you is that that time of your life is for rest. It's for rest. The ability to not keep information for too long would keep you at rest. I once watched a video, I think about 2 years ago, there was this American statesman. He was advisor in during the Nixon administration in the US. His name was Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger, special advisor. And about a year or 2 years ago, I watched a video where he was talking about the Trump administration and how the Trump administration was not living up to expectation and how disappointed and sad he was. And I was looking at this man. I think at that point he was 99 years old or so. He died about 100 years old. And at first I was admiring the fact that this man, 99 years old, was still talking about politics. But when I thought about it, I said, that is a terrible burden to carry. This man is still very aware of a failing president and is talking about how bitter he was about the failings of a president. A 90-something-year-old should not be carrying that burden. Physiologically, you should be able to live in what is called ignorant bliss. Because at that age, you should be in a restful stage where you are aware of the present and you are letting go of the griefs around you. Restful stage. A country that has a 70-year-old as their president, that position is a burden to that person, and that president is a burden to that country. A 70-year-old brain wasn't made to lead. Even a 40-year-old brain wasn't made to lead. A 40-year-old brain was made to advise. A 70, 80-year-old brain was made to rest majorly. A 20-year-old, 30-year-old brain was made to lead. And below that was made to play. If we understood our biology and we let that lead and teach us rather than ideologies of men that are manipulative, that's greedy, would realize that we have things upside down. For the young person, you were made to lead. Don't use your young age to exert strength, physical strength. Use it to exert intellectual strength. Read, ask questions, get mentors, vie for leadership positions, because you are at the peak of your intellectual strength. That window is very small. It's a very small window. Make use of it well. I really hope there's a young person out there listening to this today. Look at yourself and say, it's a privilege to be in my 20s. My brain is fully formed. I'm ready for information. I'm at the top of the food chain. I have intellectual strength. My name is Tola T.A. Alabi, and you've been listening to my podcast, ProUp Masterclass.